A very good afternoon. Welcome to Younib TV News at 1. I am Jesicca Adiang. On this 10th day of December, we have a lot lined up for you, from the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights report to the pending strike of clinical officers. This and many more after the highlights.
The National Infrastructure Fund will be ready this week. I know I announced to the people of Kenya that we are creating a National Infrastructure Fund where we are going to mobilize resources from the budget, from proceeds of privatization.
IEBC, we know as it is a Ruto commission. We tell them we are going even for private prosecution because yale yalifanyika hapa mbele na Malava, criminal.
The commission monitored these by-elections and they were kept out of two tallying centers, Chicago Primary School in Mbeere North and Mumboni North Ward.
Welcome and thank you for choosing Younib TV. Now, President William Ruto has declared that the National Infrastructure Fund will be launched next week. According to the head of state, the fund will help in raising funds for the nation's much-needed infrastructure development. It is intended to draw up to 6 times more funding from the private sector. The president says the fund should be up and running by the end of next week. He spoke in Savo West National Park.
The National Infrastructure Fund will be ready this week. I know I announced to the people of Kenya that we are creating a National Infrastructure Fund where we are going to mobilize resources from the budget, from proceeds of privatization, from royalties, and use it to attract more money. In fact, 3, 4, 5, 6 times more from the private sector.
They try to sell this parastatal without public participation, which is a constitutional requirement. It is simply because somebody somewhere wants a cut.
It's like you have a cow that is high yielder in your home. Hiyo ng'ombe ndio inatoa maziwa, watoto wanakunywa, wewe unakunywa, ingine unauza. Sasa wewe unauza hiyo ng'ombe na una ingine, ati ununue chakula ya siku hiyo.
15% was reasonable for us because we also need seed capital to put into the National Infrastructure Fund. And we've realized that 15% is raising us over 200 billion shillings to put into that fund. Collectively with other fundraising measures, we will hit our target because the strategy of the government of Kenya is to have at least 600 billion into that fund.
Now moving on, concerns about what they have called the shrinking democratic space in the East African region are being voiced by a collection of civic society organizations. The group stated in a new study on the state of civic liberties in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, which was unveiled in Nairobi on Tuesday, that the countries continue to see a rise in repression brought on by changes in policy and the abuse of the law. Martha Karua, the leader of the People's Liberation Party, criticized regional administrations for normalizing repression and reducing fundamental liberties during the report's launch.
80% of the population, based on World Bank data, of African countries south of the Sahara are living in now the worst categories of countries in terms of civic space and in terms of democratic space as well. Violation in terms of Africa south of the Sahara is the detention of journalists. The detention of journalists was covered or documented in 33 out of the 50 countries.
Civic freedom is not an abstract concept. It is the air that democracy breathes. It is the oxygen of national dignity. When civic space shrinks, corruption grows, When activists are targeted, impunity flourishes. When the press is intimidated, truth becomes a casualty.
Within the East African situations are really bad because you'll find Kenya, Uganda, Sudan, Rwanda, and Rwanda are repressed. Ethiopia, Eritrea, Sudan, Burundi, and Djibouti are lost. We are wallowing in the state of authoritarianism in Africa.
Now, the recent by-elections have been criticized by the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights for what it describes as a clear lack of transparency. According to the commission, the polls were not free nor fair, and the validity of the findings is seriously questioned. According to the commissions, 3 fatalities connected to the violence during the elections were recorded. Kenya reported unprecedented and serious human rights violations in 2024, which resulted in 57 fatalities, according to the country's Human Rights Performance Report.
The Commission monitored these by-elections, and they were kept out of 2 tallying centers, Chicago Primary School in Mbeere North and Mumboni Northward. They were kept out of those tallying centers, and therefore we cannot make a decision on whether the elections were free and fair because we were denied entry.
So 2 of them were from Kasipul, Kabondo. During the by-elections, there was a 70-year-old in a stampede in Kabuchai. So those are the 3 deaths that we've been able to document. The commission documented 57 violations on the right to life. And the period under review saw an affront to this right, especially between the months of June and July during civic unrests. The commission also calls on IPOA, that's the Independent Policing and Oversight Authority, to expedite investigations into enforced disappearances, torture, and the deaths of citizens in custody, and recommend charges against officers accused of extrajudicial killing.
Now, away from that, the United Opposition is now warning the Ethicon-led committee not to oversee disorderly elections in 2027 and accusing the electoral agency, IEBC, of being a state puppet. The leaders who are speaking in Murang'a County claim that the recent by-elections revealed the connection between the government and the IEBC and promised to contest the results of the parliamentary by-elections in Malava and Mbeere North, claiming they were rigged.
IEBC, we know as it is a Ruto commission. We tell them we are going even for private prosecution because yale yalifanyika hapa Mbeere na Malava, criminal, because we know Ruto cannot prosecute Ethicon. Ruto cannot prosecute the CEO, anaitwa Marjan. Yale yanaendelea kule tutayaziba. It is not possible to divide the United Opposition. What is binding us together is really not political rhetoric. It is the love of this nation.
There's a very deliberate scheme by the Ruto regime to split the United Opposition. Na tumeona haya wakati tumekuwa Bondo juzi, kuna kiongozi mmoja anasema tuna shida na Kalonzo ama Wamalwa, lakini tuna shida na rafiki wako mmoja. Na sisi tukajua wanaongea juu ya rafiki wetu Rigiji.
Nobody ataingilia familia yetu ya Wakamba na watu ya Mlima. We are one thing. Hii kura ya Mlima itaenda kikapu moja. One. Kama kuna mtu atataka kusimamisha hapa Murang'a, atapata kura 15,000. Si ndio? Akisimamisha mtu hapa Kirinyaga apata 8,000. Akisimamisha mwingine, ile watu yote Ruto watasimamisha, tukijumisha hao tutawapatia 50,000.
We are taking a short break. We will be back with more updates.
Ever the best. Hallelujah.
Thank you for keeping it, Younib, and welcome back. Now, following the expiration of the 21-day notice to the Ministry of Health, the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers have vowed to go on strike on December 23rd. The union accused CS Duale of not signing their return to work agreement, which they claim would operationalize their absorption into permanent and punishable terms.
Treasury imekubali, SRC wamekubali, lakini kigugumizi imebaki kuwa waziri. Siku ikitimia tarehe 23 mwezi wa 12 tutaanza mgomo kirasmi na tutafunga hospitali zote nchini.
We concluded the negotiation in September of 2025, 3 months ago. The documents are printed, ziko kwa meza ya CS for 3 months. For 3 months. Tunangoja document ambayo imemaliziwa. For 3 good months. Kwa hivyo sisi kama maafisa tabibu, tunasikia hii wizara inatudhararisha. Tunasikia discriminated and that they do not recognize and appreciate the work that
Now, moving on, the government has relaunched the Public Benefit Organizations Regulatory Authority, formerly the Non-Governmental Organizations Partnership Board, in an effort to strengthen governance, transparency, and accountability in the non-profit sector in Kenya. The authority launched a new logo and website on Tuesday, a move that presents a major overhaul in its digital system to improve service delivery and engagement with stakeholders. The authority is tasked with registering and regulating all non-governmental organizations and charitable institutions operating in the country.
This act provides for a more vibrant, accountable, transparent, and partnership-driven PBO sector. And as one of the stakeholders engaged during the development of this new brand, I am happy that the authority, with support from the Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency, KEPROBA, took into account the imperatives of the PBO Act, PBO sector realities, and expectations of stakeholders in coming up with this image. You will now be expected to live up to the ideals of the brand in all respects and demonstrate in real-life situation what you should be known for, what you have committed to represent, and project yourselves in a manner that you have defined.
Now, on to corruption matters. The young people have been encouraged to take a stand against corruption, according to EACC Chairman David Oginde and Youth Affairs Cabinet Secretary Salim Mvurya. The future of the young people, who make up the bulk of the population, will be in jeopardy if it is not contained. Uniting with the youth against corruption was the theme of their speech on the International Anti-Corruption Day at the KEICC.
Building a just and transparent society requires collaboration across generations, across sectors, across institutions, with the youth at the driving force.
When you see corruption, please scream if it is a scream that will wake everybody up. If you need to shout, shout, if that is what will wake up the people of this country to fight corruption.
When billions meant for hospitals, roads, bursaries, and universities funding vanish in private pockets, it is not just money that is stolen, it is the jobs that you are supposed to get as young people.
They never explained. I think they discovered that they had asked the wrong person. So they processed that very quickly. They say, go and check the portal now. When I checked, it had been approved. So I was thinking to myself, how many Kenyans are going through this experience?
The judiciary is playing its part, but we can only do
what we have to do when we are presented with the right information, evidence, proper investigation.
Now, the fight against graft brings us to the end of our bulletin at this hour. Thank you for keeping it Younib TV. For more updates, be sure to tune in to our subsequent 9 p.m. bulletin. You can also follow us on our social media platforms for more content. I'm Jesicca Adiang, and on behalf of everyone in the newsroom, we wish you a beautiful afternoon.